What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of Arena Goat Talk, bringing on the legends of this game, letting them tell their story, and give you guys advice along the way. On this episode, I have one of the best to ever do it, Mr. Aaron Garcia. How you doing today?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain. But yeah, appreciate your time coming on. Just basically telling your story, and for people who don't know much about Arena, they don't know the full history. I want them to know about you. So it's kind of like kick it off, kind of tell people where you from, and kind of like the beginning of your story.
Oh, good. I'm from Sacramento, California. Grew up here with a dad that was a quarterback. He was a coach here in the Sacramento area. And I tell people all the time, I never grew up wanting to be a professional. I always wanted to go to the high school that my dad coached at and be the quarterback there. And when I achieved that, like that literally was a dream come true. And it just opened a lot of doors that inevitably, obviously led to the AFL.
Mm-hmm. So growing up, you were always a quarterback, or did you bounce around a little bit, trying different positions?
Well, like I said, my dad was a quarterback and he was a coach. So I'm around the game. I'm looking up to quarterbacks. But my parents wouldn't let me play football when I was younger. So I'm playing basketball, baseball. Wasn't super athletic. I felt like I was always kind of smart and always could figure out the game. And then finally, my freshman year, my dad let me play, or my family let me play football. And I'll never forget the first pass I threw. I threw it. I got hit by a guy not as big as you, but probably as determined as you at that time when we were in ninth grade. And I didn't know if it was complete or incomplete. And then I heard the crowd kind of go crazy because I had thrown a touchdown, and it was from that moment on like that. That's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Was there any additional motivation, to make someone proud? Like, I wanted to be the best quarterback ever. Was there any underlying kind of motivation to what you were doing?
No, like I said, my dad was a quarterback. My dad, he had actually got drafted to play professional baseball, and at the time, baseball wasn't paying what they are today. Professional sports weren't paying what they are today, and he made a choice to move on and become a high school teacher, coach, and father. And so I always wanted to take that a step further for him because of the sacrifices he had made. And so that was the kind of ultimate motivation, along with a relationship with Christ, and just always a desire to be the best. Like I was competitive, whatever we played, ping pong, board games, whatever it may be. I wasn't always the best, but I always wanted to win. And I still remember, that first idea of not making it to the NFL and playing AFL, and starting off with the Arizona Rattlers, and I was a Dallas Cowboy fan. Danny White's my head coach, and I think that was the best thing that could ever happen because I lost sight of the disappointment that I think a lot of people feel, and I wanted to be a really good arena quarterback, and
Mm-hmm.
it obviously ended up that way. I saw a lot of players play the game that looked at it as a step down instead of looking at it as an incredible game that you could really compete at and find your own way in without probably as many of the politics as the NFL at that time had and things of that nature. So it was just a blessing for me at the right time in my life.
Good, good. So when you were in high school, right? How did your development as a quarterback? How did that go? Was it actually just kind of dive into your development through your high school years?
But like I said, my parents wouldn't let me play. So in middle school, all the way up to the ninth grade, I'm the starting point guard on a team where everybody else is a better athlete than me. But I've figured out how to get them in the right place and run the right plays to help us be successful. And I'll never, like, our eighth grade basketball team was 32-0 and won, at that time it's like a Northern California championship. But I remember figuring out that as many times as I tried to run extra and lift more weights and do push-ups, do all that stuff, I didn't have to be the best athlete on the court. I didn't have to be the best athlete on the field. And I think when I finally started playing football and I could walk into a huddle and figure out, okay, I'm going to get the ball to him in this situation. I'm going to get the ball to him in this situation. I think it was just kind of a really good kind of combination of factors that had led to that point in my life. And and all of my were receivers and running backs, and it was a really good situation for me, um, to put them in the best situations to be successful. And I think that just kind of that added to my development. Obviously, I would put time in, you know, throwing medicine balls and doing, jumping rope and things like that, trying to improve my physical weaknesses.
Hmm.
But I was always able to take advantage of my, I would call it mental toughness. That was the other thing, and you probably know this as well as anybody. I actually enjoyed getting hit by people like you and still doing my job.
Yeah, you're definitely one of the, if not the toughest cat I've ever known. You be taking them shots and get back up like ain't no thing. Just
Well,
nice
and
and
that's
trick
what
you out.
it was a thing, but what it really was, it was like there was some type of adrenaline that went through me. And I coach now, right? And I coach quarterbacks, and I know right away, like, this quarterback is motivated by fear, and this quarterback isn't, and it makes a huge difference, right?
Hmm.
And you have to, I still got to coach that kid that is fearful. I just got to put him in different situations. But ultimately, I think it's a hard way to make a living, if you're seeing the people that are hitting you, right? I never saw you, right? I never did. I knew it was coming, right? But I was able, for whatever reason, to train my eyes to stay downfield and take those hits and make the reads and the throws that I had to make.
Hmm. All right. So when you went through high school and you're looking at going to college, kind of talk about that transition, the whole kind of recruiting process going from high school to, getting into college.
So again, I made a lot of decisions that probably weren't, like, if I sat there and talked to my kids, I wouldn't say this is why you should make that decision. But when I was coming out of high school, I had my best friend, my best receiver. His mom was murdered when he was a sophomore, and he had nowhere to go at that time. So he moved in with me and my family and lived with me for the next 3 years. Well, we're trying to. I'm getting recruited probably at a little higher click than he is. Um, and it got to a point where he was struggling a little bit with the SAT, and so there were only a couple colleges that were still recruiting both of us, and Washington State was one of those colleges. Um, I wasn't going to make my decision strictly based on that. I had USC, all the Pac-10 at the time. Everybody else knows it as the Pac-12, and or now, the Pac-nothing. But basically, at that time, it was the Pac-10. I had USC, UCLA, everybody else. But I made my decision based on where my best friend and I could go together and continue to, try and do what we had done. And so to me, that was the recruiting process. There were some situations that happened. I met with the head coach at Cal Berkeley at the time, and he put a piece of paper in front of me, and he said, "If I offer you a scholarship right now, will you sign it?" And I said, "No, sir. I got to talk to my family. I got to pray about it." He literally put that piece of paper in the desk and slammed the door shut, and was like, then there's no more offer." Now, mind you, Cal was like 3-7 at the time, right? So I
Hmm.
wasn't really tripping, but like, as a coach nowadays and seeing what these kids go through and the stress and just all the outside factors that they have to deal with. I know how crazy it is, and but ultimately, I made my decision based on a relationship.
Okay. So, you know, fast forward to you're at your last year or your final time at in college, right? And you're looking to play professional ball. I guess kind of speak on that transition from college to the professional ranks.
Yeah, so I got in a situation in Washington State. My head coach was Dennis Erickson, who recruited me. He left and went to the University of Miami. Coach named Mike Price came in, um, had a lot of I guess success in his career, but him and I never really got along. And I never had that situation. Everywhere I'd been, coaches like me, I had success, and this coach came in, and I believe it had a lot to do with the fact that Dennis Erickson, who recruited me, and him had some type of built-in rivalry that I didn't know about, right? And I'm 19 years old, and I've been having success all my life, and that relationship didn't go well. So I ended up transferring to Sacramento State, where I was from, and and finish up with I would say a very average year at Sacramento State after leading the Pac-10 and a number of stats as a true freshman. So now I'm trying to figure out what to do next. And the NFL, I didn't get drafted. I had a couple workouts. I signed with the Canadian Football League. Didn't really want to go to Canada. And at the last minute, Danny White and the Arizona Rattlers bring me out for a workout. And I literally work out for like 20 minutes, and Danny White cuts the workout short. And they kind of send you back to a locker room. And I'm thinking, I'm just of the mindset right now, things are going kind of bad for me when it came to football. And I'm thinking I'm done. And he calls me into his office and offers me a contract. And I would say, there was a lot of things that happened from that point on, but that literally kind of changed my life and the course of, what I was looking at. And really the rest is history, because I went out there, I played with Hunky Cooper, Calvin Schexnayder, under Danny White, and it it really took me to a level. Those guys were professionals, and they really taught me how to play the game. And I had a lot of success in that league. Signed an NFL contract because of that, and just I wouldn't change a thing when it really comes down to it, because I enjoyed every minute of arena football, good and bad.
hmm So when you first got your taste of arena, I guess what was kind of like your initial thoughts about the game, the design of it, etc.
I didn't know, and again, I've kind of shared my story, and this is I'm a strong Christian man at this point. I didn't always live that way, and I remember going to Arizona, and I remember our first real. You would call it you wouldn't call it a scrimmage. It was like a practice game, preseason game, whatever you want to call it. And I remember going out the night before, which I don't recommend to anybody, right? And probably drinking a little bit, and then going into this game, and I wasn't supposed to start. Again, I didn't have a lot of accolades at that point in my career, and the quarterback ahead of me gets hit in his knee and gets basically carted off the field, and now I'm in the game. And so I haven't taken it as serious as I need to, but I had played with a guy named Calvin Schexnayder at Washington State, and he was on the Arizona Rattlers at the time. And so I go into that game, and I'm literally like, I'm going to make my read, and if I don't like it, I'm throwing it to Calvin. And literally, by the end of that game, I had thrown him 4 touchdowns and probably thrown Hunky Cooper 2 touchdowns. And the next week, I was the starting quarterback. You know what I mean? And so I wish I could give you a better, like when I have kids, right? I coach kids. I wish I could give you a better story on how that all played out. But at the end of the day, God has a plan and meets us where we are. And that was the plan for my life. And I cleaned a lot of stuff up since then.
Mm.
But I'm very thankful for those people that were, a part of that process that got me to where I am today. Honestly,
Hmm. So, during your years, I guess how did you approach the game? What made you who you were when it came to, you as a professional athlete, as a man during those arena years? What made you? What are some of the things that you, I guess, kind of drove you, motivated you through those years?
I didn't want to do anything else. Like literally, there's never beside outside of being an arena football quarterback, like the only thing that I could say has trumped that in my life is being a good father and being a good husband. Like other than that, like I'm an athletic director. Um, I can tell you other things that I've done, other sports that I've played, but I've never wanted to do anything like I wanted to play arena football. And I don't know because obviously we didn't grow up doing that, right? We weren't 10 years old, dreaming about playing arena football. And but
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, something in that game clicked for me, and I would cold tub, weight room, extra conditioning, jump rope, like I said, medicine ball, ice, watch film. Like I can't tell you how many hours I spent each day just trying to be the best arena football player I could be. And it wasn't, and honestly, like I love the fact that I got a contract with the 49ers because of it, but I never played the game for that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
played the game because I wanted to beat the Orlando Predators, and that was hard. That was like my nemesis for a long time, right? And but that's what drove me. Like I could lose a game on Saturday, win a game on Saturday. You know how we would sign autographs on the field after the fact, and then I would go home and ice tub and watch film and do all that stuff and start all over again for 20 something years. Like
Mm-hmm.
and I was happy. Like I can't tell you like I wasn't doing this because I had to. There were plenty of I had a degree, I had a credential, I had things that I could do, but that is what I love to do.
Mm-hmm. So, as a quarterback, right? I guess kind of speak on, you break the huddle. What are things that are kind of going through your head pre-snap, going into the snap, looking at coverage? I guess like a brief look into your head. What was some of the things that you were thinking?
I worked hard and I feel like the balance that that I hope quarterbacks. My son is a quarterback at Utah State right now. Um, I coach high school football, and I have two young quarterbacks that I'm working with right now, and it is a very hard balance to watch so much film and know your playbook so well, and still walk up to the line of scrimmage and not have preconceived notions, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I wanted to have all that information and be prepared for every situation that I could get into. But then I wanted to be in that moment and react. And that's really hard to do. You hear quarterbacks, even at the NFL level, talk about seeing ghosts. And it's because they're so mindful and they care. Like they really do care. They watch film, they learn the playbook and all that stuff. But then they walk up to the line of scrimmage and they what's the word I'm looking for? Preconceive, or they make a decision before the ball is snapped, and that's going to get you in trouble, right? Like I always worked hard, and I felt like I was very successful at making decisions after the fact. And I think that goes back to the amount of time I spent playing basketball. I would have never had a career in basketball. I could shoot, I could distribute the ball, but at the end of the day, I was 6 feet tall and probably ran a 4.8 40 at best. And so, but with arena football specifically, I was able to walk up to the line of scrimmage and slow the game down and get the ball to the right people at the right times. And I was also very aggressive, very stubborn, very hard headed, where I always wanted to dictate to the defense and not let them dictate to me. So that's kind of where I lived. I watched some quarterbacks have a lot of success playing kind of defensive, not making mistakes, um, not taking hits, things of that nature, and I respect it, but that wasn't my style. Like I wanted to sit back and have you, bring pressure, be pissed off, and do all that, and still beat you. And if I couldn't do it that way, I really didn't enjoy it, to be honest.
So, thinking about your career, was there a particular moment that was like the game started to slow down, where you kind of start to feel comfortable? Was there a point that you can think of that the game slowed down and all of a sudden you felt comfortable with everything that you were kind of doing?
Yeah, so I started out, like I told you, in Arizona. Cedric Bonner, great Hall of Fame quarterback, right? Incredible friend. He's the starter. He gets a chance with the Miami Dolphins, so they bring me in, and I end up being the starter. Well, he gets cut from the Dolphins and comes back. Long story short, I tell him, man, we need to negotiate for the highest contracts. He ends up signing, a contract prior to me, and now I'm stuck. And so I end up moving on to Connecticut, who paid me twice as much as I was making, but we were twice as bad. You know what I mean? We weren't successful. And that kind of started this kind of journey of trying to find a home. Well, I'm playing in New Jersey, and all of a sudden I fly home because my daughter is born on we played on a Saturday. I fly home on Sunday. My daughter is born. She was born on Saturday, so I missed that. I fly home Sunday, and I'm sitting there holding my daughter. I get a phone call. I had just gotten traded from New Jersey to Iowa because Kurt Warner had left. Iowa was losing. So Iowa makes this trade. They give up 2 or 3 players for me. But they tell me I need to be in Iowa like the next day. I don't have clothes. Everything's still in New Jersey. I fly out to Iowa, start a game that Friday, and we win. They were 0-5. We end up winning. And we fly home to San Jose the next week. So now I'm seeing my daughter again. I'm doing all that. And basically, we end up turning the whole season around. And I find a home with the Barnstormers at the time with John Gregory. I'm running this offense that it's a kind of a hybrid of CFL and NFL. And it fit me perfectly. And, obviously Iowa ends up getting bought by New York, and I go to New York. And so the combination of Iowa and New York, I want to say it was like 10, 11 years of just setting records. The only downside was we never could win a championship. We got to the, semifinals, and all that probably 9 times. And we were kind of like the Buffalo Bills of the NFL at that time. We just could not, cross that threshold. And but it was an amazing career with just incredible relationships and some great football. I think I had our head pastor here at I coach and teach or I'm the AD at a Christian school. Our head pastor went out to Des Moines several months ago, and they still remember, that time frame of arena football. And so I would say that is the kind of moment in the time that I would say where my career changed, for the best.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, you kind of spoke on championships, right?
Yep,
So you remember this moment here?
I do indeed.
Can you kind of kind of speak on what you were thinking and how that felt when it was all said and done?
Well,
You were a champion.
like I told you before, I played angry. We had lost to Arizona earlier in the year. I want to say it was the first or second game of the season, and I made it very clear to them and everybody else that day that we would be back. And obviously, I had started at Arizona, and so there was a special place there. And so we get there for the Arena League, championship, Arena Bowl, and there was a lot of things that happened. They put us in a practice facility that, you couldn't even throw a 40-yard pass without hitting the ceiling. There was other things that happened, and so I'm already we finished in Jacksonville on a Sunday night, and then had to get to Arizona and play on a Friday night. So there was just a lot of stuff going on. And then we get out in warm-ups and fans are talking crazy. And I just remember I had played so many playoff games to a certain extent fearful of losing. And I remember going into that one like I want to say I threw a ball at a fan in pregame warm-ups. Like I was just angry. And we came out and the first play of the game, I throw a touchdown. It goes back and ended up, I think that game started his run of just greatness. But I remember there was a linebacker on that team, and I don't remember his name, but he had talked crazy to me earlier in that game. And anyway, so this thing goes back and forth, and we get to a point at the end of the game where we got to decide: are we going to kick a field goal or just go for the jugular? And Coach Moss, myself, we sit there and I'm like, you call it and I'll do it, whatever you call. And he was like, let's go for it. And I still remember calling the play. And you always hope in those situations it's going to work out and your first read is there, but it wasn't. My first read wasn't there. My second read wasn't there. The D line was getting pressure, and but I remember being calm in that situation and really believing, having faith that somebody was going to come open. And sure enough, Jerron Harvey sneaks out into the right corner. I find him, able to get enough on it, and the rest is history. Probably the best 5 minutes of my life, to be honest with you, right outside of my kids being born and things of that nature. Those things are a lot more long lasting. But I know from that time that he caught that ball, and I could feel the crowd energy. I knew my future wife was there. I knew my kids were there. I was celebrating with some of my best friends ever. I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it. I might see if my wife can go grab a bottle of champagne in a minute, and we can pop bottles, in remembrance. But it was just again, I love it. Everything that I did, however many years I played, were worth that moment. I would take that over all the records. Anything else that happened for me, when it came to football, that was the really culmination of everything that I put into it.
Mm-hmm. Good, good. So you spoke on, you touched on this earlier, but kind of what are you doing nowadays?
Man, well, think about that for a minute. I got three kids that were there that day. I threw my son up on my shoulders, who's now the quarterback that I mentioned earlier at Utah State. Both my
Mm-hmm.
daughters were there. I became a grandson on July 3rd. To Bash Manning, or what? Yeah, grandfather on July 3rd. I'm a grandpa, and to Bash Manning, and so I'm doing family always, right? I'm also an athletic director, and head football coach at a Christian high school here in Sacramento, California. I have two younger kids, 10 and 6, that I'm about to get a hip replacement Friday night, to try and kind of keep getting around the way I want to be able to, parent them and be a good husband. So, but it's again, it's a journey, and I think arena football prepared me for so much of what I've done since then. I tell people all the time, like, you and I played with teammates that, some of them were just outstanding athletes and maybe, had a deficiency in one way or another. Some of them weren't very good athletes, but just had a desire that you couldn't measure, right? And then some of them were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know what I mean? And ended up in our league and could have been NFL stars, and some of them ended up being NFL stars, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I just and I deal with that every day, whether it's as a parent, as a husband, as an athletic director, as a coach, and as a friend, all of that stuff. Like, I'm so thankful for the lessons that I learned and that I'm trying to teach young people nowadays. And honestly, man, I'm still trying to learn. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? This game never gets easier. Honestly, as like I talked to you about this hip replacement I'm about to have, like, I'm still working through, how do I succeed and feed off of fear, or continue to desire to be successful, even when the energy isn't there or whatever it may be, right? And so that's where I'm at today. But I still, if you ask me who I am, I'm still an arena football quarterback to this day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah, I don't want to hold you up too much, but I kind of usually kind of end out with, you guys giving advice to, players who, they're fresh out of college or they're debating on whether they want to continue their pro football journey. Kind of give any kind of advice that you may have for, young guys who are at a crossroads or at the beginning of their pro football journey.
I would honestly tell them that I think real life is harder than football, and it doesn't seem like it when we're in it, right? It doesn't seem like it when you're running those extra gassers, or you're lifting weights, or you're getting off the ground because EJ Bird just put his helmet in your sternum. You know what I'm saying? Like, that seems hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But getting up every day, clocking in and clocking out, and being a husband, being a dad, those things are hard. And so and I'm not saying to not pay attention to those things, but I'm saying I would advise people to play as long as they can. Like I said, I don't walk right now. Like, I try to make it look cool, but it's not right. And I'm getting this replacement for a reason. But I am super thankful that the 15 opportunities I had to quit, prior to when I did, that I didn't, because I enjoy those moments, the wins, the losses, whatever it may be, and I'll never get those back. Right? Me and my wife were cleaning out the garage, and we're trying to decide: do we take these DVD? No, not even DVDs. Do we take these, VHS things and try and put them on, some kind of, you know, computer program, whatever? But nobody cares at this point, right? When it really comes down to it. So I would just say, live in the moment, right? Be the best you can be right where you are. Don't, like I said, I think the best thing for me was that I wanted to be in the NFL, but I didn't get caught up in that. Like, when I was in the AFL, I was in the AFL, and I was trying to beat the Orlando Predators. Um, and I wasn't thinking about what I didn't have. I was really thankful for what I did have. So I would tell anybody, my own kids, somebody else's kids, right, that are at that point, like, just be thankful. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that you're out there able to throw a ball, catch a ball, hit somebody, whatever it may be. Like, just be thankful and do the best you can do in that moment. And then, and then react, like I said, after the snap, react and make the best decision you can and get back up and do it again.
All right, cool. So again, appreciate your time. I know them kids out there working you hard and all, but again, I appreciate you coming on and just talking, chopping it up. So I know we ain't talking, Lord knows how long.
No, well,
So
like I said, you D linemen always motivated me, and I love that you're doing what you're doing and kind of giving back and providing history and things like that. And I know this, I sound even older than I am, probably, but I'm proud of you, man. And I really appreciate you reaching out.
yeah, appreciate you. So, but we'll be in touch. 'Cause there's many more ways that we can talk and help each other out and all that stuff. So, but again, appreciate you coming on and good luck this upcoming season. And we'll be talking.
All that, BJ.
All right, now.
God bless. Yep.
God bless.